So maybe this hasn't been the best Lent for you. You're feeling like, just can't do that sacrifice anymore. Well, we want to give you a little of an encouragement this episode.
This is the Truth Pop Podcast with Jake and Cathy, a Catholic take on faith and culture. Be sure to subscribe.
Welcome to another episode of the Truth Pop Podcast. I'm Cathy.
And my name is Jake.
And we're a married couple helping you to live out your faith in modern day society.
And we're excited to be here on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to us on the new Truth Pop YouTube channel. We would just love to have you here on the journey as we make the change over to YouTube as well. But of course, you can always subscribe to us as well. Listen to the Truth Pop Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So yeah, babe, how is your Lent going so far?
Well, I'll be honest, it's not going as well as all my other past Lents. I feel like I'm kind of struggling and my weakness is very obvious, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do know that in the past Lents, I've been very strong-willed and I've been really strong in my sacrifices. But yeah, I'm really struggling this Lent. I have done, I don't know if you've heard of Fiat 40.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the female version of Exodus 90. So it's really like engaging the sacrifice of the body, mind, and soul. And so incorporating that in that way. And so it's kind of a lot. And so I kind of do a modified version of that. And one really cool thing is 2 years ago I did it, and one of the sacrifices is giving up social media. And to this day, I haven't been on social media.
And it's not like
that.
you've actually like deactivated your Facebook.
Yeah.
There.
I just forgot my password and I don't miss it.
It's like God's way of saying, okay, like you're done on social media here,
Right,
but you're
right.
happy with it. I mean,
Yeah. Another sacrifice too is no sweets and no snacking.
that's tough.
Those have been the hardest ones for me. And I really believe in not sacrificing on Sundays and on solemnities. And so there's been a lot of solemnities recently, like St. Joseph and the Annunciation. And so I've been really taking advantage of that. Like even on the vigil, I was like, okay, let's eat ice cream. Like, let's
Like
have
trying to
snacks.
force me to eat ice cream. I'm like, hey, wait. Like, I mean, you've always been a fan of Saint Joseph, but when
Yeah.
the solemnity of Saint Joseph came around, you were very much a fan of his.
Yes, I was
So,
very thankful.
yes.
But yeah, I do notice that like I'm weaker than I have been in the past, and I'm not like doing as well as I have been. And so one thing that the Lord is reminding me is that when I am weak, he is strong, and we can really learn to depend on him and be okay with our weakness.
Yeah.
You know, Second Corinthians chapter 12, St. Paul says, when I am weak, then I am strong, because we can rely on the Lord's grace more. When we're self-sufficient, we don't need God. We don't need him. But when we are weak and we know we need him, that's when his grace can come through more, and we can receive that even more.
In some ways, it's a failure of Lent to get through it and to do really, really well at your penances and to think, oh, I did that all by myself, right?
Yeah.
That's a danger. And the only way that we can fail Lent by not doing our sacrifices well is by just completely giving up our sacrifices and saying, forget it, I'm not going to try anymore. But if you're at this place where, yeah, maybe you've undertaken a lot of Lenten penances and the sacrifices have been hard and you feel like you've just been giving in and having that cake, I don't want you to think that like, well, yes, I mean, you can still watch us, of course. You can still listen to our podcast, but I'm talking about like the funner cake, the dessert kind.
Oh, we're pretty fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, we got that sweet frosting right there. But regardless, I think that like if you're at that point in your life where the penance is tough, just keep trying again the next day, right? I mean, that was just great advice I got from my spiritual director that like it's not a sin to struggle at your Lenten
Mm.
sacrifices. The
Yeah.
reason we're doing these sacrifices is to give glory to God.
Mhm.
Father Mike Schmitz reminded us of that, that like, we do these penances as a way to show our love to God. And he's that loving father who looks on us with compassion if we're struggling, and he
Yeah.
doesn't condemn you if it's been a difficult Lent. So he doesn't want you to just bow your head in shame and to think, oh, I'm this horrible Catholic. He wants you to just keep trying and to do it with a heart full of love for your Father who is so rich in mercy and compassion for us when we struggle and when we're aware of our weaknesses. It was really just really encouraged personally, as I've been struggling with my Lenten penances as well, babe, so you're
Yeah.
not alone in that. And I've been so aware of how many attachments I have,
Mm.
and I think attachment can really be attributed to the younger prodigal son.
Mm.
We're going to hear that story in the gospel this weekend, and of course you know the story, right? Like, this guy was given so much by his father and he squandered it, and he just ran off and spent it
Yeah.
all, and he took advantage of how much love the father had given him, and he was feeling really shameful. He was
Mhm.
feeling like he was a failure, and he felt like his dad would never want to talk to him again. But in those times where I'm aware of how much attachment I have, I can kind of place myself into the prodigal son. And
Mhm.
side note, I learned from my parish priest, Father Michael Wanda, that the word prodigal, it can mean, rebellion,
Mhm.
as the way that we often think about the prodigal son rebelled against his father. But the word prodigal is actually an adjective which means excessive,
Mm.
having too much of.
Yeah.
So, like, how many attachments do I have? I have many, right?
Mhm.
And so often those attachments block me from receiving the Father's love. So it's very clear that this younger prodigal son had excessive
Yeah.
attachments and excessive sin in his life. But so often when we ask ourselves the question, like, oh, do I relate more to the younger prodigal son or the older brother? Well, I think the real question is, which prodigal son do I relate to? Because I think the older son was also a prodigal son
Yeah.
too, and that he was excessive with having too much pride.
Mm.
He looked on his younger brother with so much disdain and self righteousness, thinking, oh, like, I'm this perfect person. The father should be showing me all this love and attention, and I'm not getting it. And
Yeah.
maybe sometimes I find myself in those shoes too, in those times where I think, oh yeah, I'm doing really well at this spiritual life game. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
much more to do. And
Right.
like, I mean, Father Mike Schmitz also talked about that, how like it's such a danger to get to that point where we think that we've
Mhm.
advanced so far that we don't have more work to do in our life.
Yeah.
So both sons are excessive. Both sons are prodigals. But the really important thing is that the father is also a prodigal too.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that is so amazing, that the father was he was the most prodigal. He was the
Mm.
most excessive because of his mercy and his forgiveness.
Yeah.
The younger son, he was very excessive in his sin and in his waste. And the older son, he was excessive in his pride. But the father, he was abundant in his mercy.
Mm.
He had so much love to give both of his sons.
Yeah.
And that is the same for our Father in heaven. We may be struggling with sin. We may be struggling with pride and have a lot of it.
Mm.
But the Lord's mercy and forgiveness is so abundant that it's nothing compared to our problems.
Yeah. I mean, his mercy covers all of our shame and all of our sin
Mhm.
and all of the pride that we might find ourselves in this Lent if it's going well, or
Yeah.
maybe it's not going well and you feel more of that disappointment. Wherever you find yourself on that Lenten scale, let's all find ourselves in the Father's heart, and let's all take advantage of this opportunity to go to confession and to humbly submit ourselves and to be honest about where our shortcomings are, because we all have them.
Yeah.
But most importantly, let's trust that that mercy is real, and the Father's love for you is unchanging, regardless of how you feel about yourself. So we are here for you. We are praying for you this Lent, and feel free to comment If you have any prayer requests or if you want to share how your Lent has been going, again, on YouTube. So be sure to check us out, subscribe to the Truth Pop podcast. But we look forward to journeying with you, continuing to walk with you through this desert. And it is a desert, right? It's a desert devoid of chips and other good
And
things and
sweets.
sweets, yes. But cake is still with you through the process. So God bless you. And thank you so much for listening to the Truth Pop podcast.
This is the Truth Pop Podcast. Fill your faith.